Indie funding, meet Kowloon Nights. Want help getting your next project started? Do not miss the opportunity to get to know more about Kowloon Nights, an independent games investment fund with more than $100 million to finance independent games, with 40 plus titles in the portfolio, and they are among the investors of the next game by Brazilian developer Rogue Snail. This session is in English, so if you want the translation in Portuguese, you can get the link at the translation here in our channel. Let's welcome our moderator, Mark Venturelli, CEO and Creative Director of Rogue Snail, Anlu Liu, Content Manager of Kowloon Nights, and Astrid Restrup, CEO and co-founder of Triple Topping Games. The screen's all yours, guys. You have a good panel.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Good afternoon, Brazil. It's good to be here. Even though I'm Brazilian, I'm going to be speaking English because I have the pleasure of being joined by my friends, Anlu and Astrid. Hello, Anlu. Hello, Astrid.
Hello.
Hello.
Very nice to have both of you here. So we have not a lot of time, so I won't be talking much. I'll just let you talk. So I'll start with asking you to tell us a little bit about Kowloon, who you are, and what have you done so far?
Right. So Kowloon has been established since 2017, so it's about 3 years from now. And like Bruno mentioned, so far we have about 40 plus titles in our portfolio already. And let me share a little bit about our team first. Our team is actually a pretty small team. We have about 5 people full-time, but then we have a bunch of advisors that are super active when it comes to scouting for projects, evaluating projects. So basically on the core team side, our founder, Alexis, he started at the Xbox back at Microsoft. So he founded titles like Cuphead, The Long Die, etc. And then we have Lindsay, who's working on games herself. So she made the Red Lantern. And then we have Sam, that is a slightly more business background. On the other side, we have Callum, who does who is at Oculus and who is at Raw Furry, who helps us scout a lot of projects. And then on the advisor side, we have Astrid, Kendall, Richie, and Jenny. And Astrid herself, she's also working on games. So basically, we are a pretty small team, but then we have actually signed a lot of projects so far.
Yeah, so we have reviewed more than 1,000 projects. I don't know how you keep count, Anlu. We have more than 43 games actually signed, and more than 31 different cities all around the world. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about that, but it's not like one specific kind. It's basically what we love and what we find interesting on the team that we sign. So we have many different IPs signed with Kowloon Nights.
And one reason why we really established Kowloon is that we wanted to provide an alternative for developers when it comes to looking for funding. And how we do this is that we try to think from the developer point of view when we're doing a lot of stuff. So basically our core values would be that we want to be fair in terms of our deal terms and also our day-to-day operations. And everything that we sign in our portfolio is actually something that we are really excited about playing, and we really enjoy playing it. And in terms of support, we are hands off, but then of course we want to help whenever developers ask.
So when it comes to the fairness, diving a little bit more into details, and I know that being a game developer myself, before I joined Kowloon Nights, I actually signed a title with them. And one of the struggles can be that sometimes when you sign, there's like a recoupment period. But here we make sure that the developer will get revenue share from the first dollar they earn on the game. So you don't have to fear like letting your team go, or how you would like keep the company going until like revenue streams start floating into your company. We have a very flexible payment schedule, and there's no fixed milestones that you have to live up to. We believe that the developer know how to create the game, so we don't want to like go and check on you all the time if you pass different milestones with like features and stuff like that. Yeah, I already said this a little bit of sources of revenue flow directly to the developer, eliminating delays in payments. So if you sign with a publisher, often the publisher will collect the revenue, and then you would invoice the publisher to get the revenue. And here's the other way around, which is a big change in how things normally work. You keep your IP and the sequel rights. That's also very important to know. And it's a straightforward and simple agreement. I remember when I signed it myself, and I had to like send it to your lawyers for redlining, and I was like, I think he added one thing, that I should be able to take maternity leave when I gave birth to my child, and Sam was like, yeah, check. And that was it. So it's a very simple and fair agreement.
Yeah, I can confirm that it's the simplest one I've ever seen in like
Yeah,
13
I was
years
so
working in this
surprised.
industry.
Yeah, we're always very proud saying that our contract is only 3 pages long.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the stuff, in terms of the games that we fund, it's definitely something that our whole team is excited about and would enjoy playing. And we always make fun that Kowloon is a universe where both Scorn and Spiritfarer could coexist, even though they are really, really very different games.
Yeah, and in terms of the support, and that is where it's important for you as a developer to figure out like what is actually you need for your game. So you will of course keep the full creative control. We will help you build like your own long-lasting relationship, especially platforms. This is great if you're a developer. Then you will be able to go and pitch your next game to the platforms instead of have to doing it via a publisher. We will help and talk to you about like release dates, platforms, exclusivity, subscription, discounts, and all of those things that can sometimes be a little bit of a jungle to figure out. But you will have to focus all of like you will have to do the marketing effort of your own game. Like we will not provide you with QA, localization support, and marketing support for your game like a publisher would normally go and do. So that you will have to like either hire someone to help you do or do that within your own company.
Right. So even though you folks are investors, you don't do equity investment, right? You work with project financing.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think before we really understand what Kowloon is looking for, I think, and then what is the cons of, what is the pros of signing with Kowloon, I think we can understand a little bit about what are the types of financing out there and what really is good and bad about them. So on the project side, of course, the good thing is that because it's not equity, so you get to retain all the ownership of the company. The process of signing it, it's really fast, it's very simple. There wouldn't be term sheets, there's no shareholder agreements, etc. So the whole process is a lot faster. And because it's not equity, so it's definitely less invasive. And you could do risk management because you can work on multiple projects simultaneously. And the not so good thing about project financing is that you might have potentially less freedom in development because publishers or partners can be controlling a bit in terms of working on the project. And the funding you get can only be used on the specific project, and you might have to give up IP rights when you are working with publishers. On the other side, in terms of equity, it's definitely a lot more flexible when it comes to developing the project. And the funding can actually be used across different projects. So if you are looking for money that is actually for long-term growth, then maybe equity is more suitable for you. And then the not so good thing about equity is that you may have to submit quarterly, monthly updates reports. You might have to give up board seats, observer rights. And the process to get the funding is usually really long. It can take up to half a year or a year because there's a lot of due diligence. You have to sign a lot of documents, etc.
Yes. So if you just look into like the traditional publishers in Kowloon Nights, because right now I think Anna and I have a lot of meetings with maybe some of you listening out there, and there's often a misunderstanding if we are a publisher or what we or if we do equity. We don't do equity, and we are not a publisher. So a traditional publisher, they are typically hands-on with a project. They're gonna work together with you, and it the developer needs to like. I'm misreading the slide because I'm here on this phone. Sorry. So traditional publishers, they're gonna work together with you. But they will also have like a huge platform normally where they can like help you advertise your game, and they're gonna have a lot of know-how and ways to support you. If you work with Kowloon Nights, you are more hands off. We are more hands off on the project, so you will be standing there more on your own, and you will have to make sure that you're leading the project in the right direction. Of course, we are there to give feedback if you want it. But that also means you could be more on top of like what kind of game are you developing and what are your goals with the game. There is a better cash flow because there will not be like a milestone that you don't meet and then you're not getting the money and then you have to sort of like stretch to get there. And then of course you're keeping your IP and secret rights. Like if you sign with a publisher, they might you will have to work with them in many cases on sequels, DLCs, and so on.
And then, after you understand really what are the types of financing there, what's good and bad about them, it really matters. There's definitely no right or wrong to which type of financing you get, but it really depends on the context. It depends on your game. It depends on what is your vision for the studio. So, definitely weigh your options and consider the implication of each type of funding when it comes to looking for money. And there will be different trade-offs and responsibility when accepting any external capital. And as an investor, what we are really looking for is that we would like to look for high quality projects, projects with very clear segments, unique selling points. The budget must, of course, be reasonable. It couldn't be overly high or it's too low that we believe that it might, increase by a lot. We're definitely looking for teams that are capable of doing production, that are reliable. And then in terms of return, we are definitely looking to recoup and get modest return on revenue share. So the stuff that we might want to avoid is actually teams that clearly shows that they have production issues, they're not able to ship a game. And also we would avoid, budgets that are really unreasonable for the genre, location, and also team size.
Awesome.
Sorry, Mark. Ellen and I, we're just talking away because we just want to be aware of time.
You're doing good. You're doing good. Keep at it.
Thank you. So for the investment criteria, we don't look for VR or mobile games. We're primarily looking for PC, console, any genre, any location. Your budget should be within the range of 500K to $6 million US. Sometimes it can be lower.
I think Astrid is breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, basically sometimes it can be lower, but then because right now we are a very small team, so we try to be very hands-off in terms of the project we sign. So we're actually looking for slightly bigger titles. So I would say that for the most recent titles that we've signed, usually they're $1 million or $2 million. So right now we're actually looking for slightly bigger titles. But ultimately, of course, we sign games that we enjoy playing, and we are looking for teams that are willing to do self-publishing. So I think Astrid has mentioned a little bit about this. Basically, we don't have an in-house publishing team. So we can't help you do your QA, we can't help you do your localization. But what we usually do is that, of course, we provide the funding that they need to contact agencies. And then some developers might have preferred partner that they want to work with, then feel free to work with them. If not, we can also help to connect developers with agencies that we recommend. We will also be on the calls and stuff. We will give our advice as to which agencies we think it's a little better. But then, of course, the developer will have a final say in terms of what agencies they want to work with. On the China side, we would also actively help developers look out for opportunities, because we understand that in regions like China, it's a little bit more difficult to publish yourself. So we would actually help to look for publishers, we pitch to publishers there. If not, we will also help to look out for marketing agencies to help handle the marketing in regions like China, Japan, and also in Korea. So, if today's PowerPoint is something that sounds interesting to you, definitely feel free to reach out to us. And the easiest way would be to fill out our form on our website under the Contact Us page. So with that, definitely share with us a pitch deck, a build, a video gist. We typically sign project at prototype stage, so it's best to actually reach out to us when you have something playable. And please tell us, what you want to make, and be very confident about your project. And in terms of process, we would usually take about 3 to 4 weeks time to get back to you. So this is the end of the presentation.
And that was lightning fast. You two took it down in 15 minutes.
So we have 15 minutes for questions.
Exactly. Bruno, can we take questions from the audience?
Yes, well, we currently do not have any questions from the audience, but I would also ask everyone that's watching us right now, if you want to ask questions to Mark and to Astrid and to Ando, now's the time. So please
Awesome.
ask away.
Yeah, in the meantime, I think I might share a little bit of my perspective on what how we have been working with Kowloon, and I can say that everything on these slides is true. Like a Kowloon is very straightforward. They really give us a lot of freedom. It's a very different from working with a traditional publisher or traditional equity investor. So I think that the slides are just so good. Like when Astrid and Enlu and I were talking about how we're going to structure this talk, I actually the slides were so good that I thought, hey, I don't really need to ask you anything. I'll just let you present the slides because they're very clear, and I think it's most of what the Brazilian developers will want to understand. Like, should I go to Kowloon, and if so, what are you looking for, and how do I do it? And I guess you just nailed it. So hopefully, maybe the audience might have some more specific questions about
Yep.
how working
We
with Kowloon is.
Okay, we got a question here. Does Kowloon Nights fund games that are at the end of development with marketing support?
So we have invested in games that are super close to release, but then I would say that most of our project is pretty early stage, either it's at vertical slice or prototype stage. But of course, we do look at projects that are close to release as well.
Awesome. Well, before we're still receiving questions from audience, but I would like to ask a question of my own to Mark. In your experience, you said that there's a lot of you've seen a lot of differences between Kowloon Nights and other talks with investment funds that you already had. Can you follow up on that? What are the main differences that you see from the experience that you had with Kowloon and with other types of potential investors? Yeah,
You're muted.
I think you're muted, Mark.
Sorry about that. Classic Zoom move. So with Kowloon, it really feels for us that it's indie plus, right? It feels like we're still completely in control. We're completely like making all the decisions and be responsible for the success or failure of the project. While at the same time, we have not only the financial backing, but Kowloon is also smart money because they're very much industry people. So there's a lot of investors who are not like deeply connected and which really deeply understand how games are developed, and that is certainly not the case with Kowloon. They really understand not only the market and but also the processes and how games are developed. So it's really just so smooth working with Kowloon compared to a traditional investor for sure. And compared to publishers, it's just the feeling of we're still indie. Like we don't really have a publisher. We can do whatever we want. And and just the kinds of projects that Kowloon backs. If you look at their portfolio, they back some really interesting projects. They're really it's clearly not a cash grab company. They really are interested in taking risks at doing like creatively interesting projects, and I'm very proud to be side by side with the types of games that Kowloon signs. They're really super awesome.
Great. We have another question from the audience. How can we use the fund resources? Does it have specific uses or is it open?
So of course, when we're evaluating the project, usually there will be a budget document. So it must be something that we see that, what is the fund used for? Is it used for labor? Is it used for some other stuff? So as long as that is reasonable, usually it's open. But then I think Kowloon still needs to have a good sense of where the fund is located for what is it used for.
Okay, so let's go to our next question. If one of my games happens to be denied on a first interview, do you accept another pitch with adjustments?
We do. We always tell developers that, of course, feel free to send over any updates and stuff. But then, of course, I do think personally, my opinion is that the first pitch is definitely the most important pitch. Like that's the first impression, right? So usually, unless it's something that we have specific concerns about the project that we raised. If not, usually I think the excitement about the project would usually be around roughly the same. So I do think that try to do your best when it comes to first time pitching, and hopefully you get a good impression after that.
All right. Okay, we have another question here. Do you have any restrictions on titles in early access or that will enter early access soon?
So we don't sign titles that are already out. So we don't sign titles that are in early access already. If they're close to entering early access, we would also consider whether or not, working with Kowloon is something that would benefit the developer as well. Like whether or not the developer would benefit working with Kowloon, even though they're going to release so soon. So that's something that we'll consider as well. But then we would still take a look at the project, just that we don't sign anything that's out already.
Yeah, and it's like if you're going to early access soon, why do you need Kowloon, right? Why do you need the money?
Okay, so let's go to our next question. Does the project need to be finished in terms of art, or could it be a prototype with placeholder art?
This is a tricky question. Like, of course, definitely we prefer prototype with art already, because if you can see from our portfolio, I would say we do have a little bias in terms of like games with good art. But then of course, ultimately it's the game mechanics that's important, whether or not it's fun. Art-wise, even if the prototype doesn't have the art that you want to achieve, I think it's good to maybe add some screenshots or maybe add some drawings of what you expect the product to be ultimately. I think that would be really good if you don't have that in the prototype. But then of course we would prefer if the prototype already has good art.
Yeah, in our case, for example, we did have a prototype that was very different visually to what the final product is going to look like, but still, like, we tried to make it look as good as possible with the placeholder art that we had, but also we provided like some visual targets and like concept art so that the Kowloon people could actually envision what the game's going to look like. And I'm not want I don't want to talk for Kowloon on this, but probably the track record of the studio also helps. Like if they can see that you can deliver something that looks good, that is probably going to help as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, our time is up. I'd like to thank you guys. Thank you, Mark, for the moderation, and Anlu and Astrid here. The panel was really cool.
Thank you.
All right. Well, for those of you who are watching, don't forget to share the link to our channel and tag your friends to attend Big Festival 2021 and check our content. It was a pleasure to be here.
Big Festival 2021, the biggest games festival in Latin America.